my good buddy John Reed. Say hello, John.
Hey, JT.
How's it going, man?
Oh, it's awesome over here. It's awesome over here. Have you
We
heard the new? Have you heard the news?
what news
The,
is
the,
it?
the, the baby has a name.
Oh, that's right. The baby has a name, George Alexander Louis, right?
Yeah, apparently, I was hoping they would call him Royal Baby.
Speaking of which, isn't it amazing how iOS has an actual royal baby app? That is correct.
Oh,
They have a royal baby app. I haven't opened it yet. I just downloaded it when we're thinking about this. But it is week 2 of Apps 30, our new weekly webcast, and we're going to be talking this week about messaging and lifestyle apps specifically, and how we have our favorite messaging and lifestyle apps, and how they have helped our lives out in different ways. So, John, let's get started. Your messaging app of the week is.
well, I want to throw a bit of a left field here because one of the things about messaging is that there's two sides of it. There's the simple sending short messages, text style, but there's also the whole video conferencing thing. And one of the new boys from over the last year is FaceFlow at faceflow.com. They have a BlackBerry 10 app out at the moment, and they say Android and iOS is coming soon. And what I really like about it is they're just trying to be a real contender to Skype and that because before it was an app, it was predominantly a web-based app. It uses Flash on the website, plugs into your webcam, you use a microphone, and you can chat with anybody else on another computer as long as they have Flash. You don't have to install any software, you don't have to do anything fancy. As long as you set up an account with them, you're good to go. And they seem to be really trying to push a nice little niche of a messaging app that isn't Skype. Because let's face facts right now, Skype is probably the big daddy of internet video messaging at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's true because you Skype people, and I feel like anytime um, the name of an app becomes a verb, it's because it's huge, right? So you Skype people and Facebook, that's actually a pretty good choice. Right now, they're available on which platforms?
Facebook, like I say, is just available on BlackBerry 10 or your desktop browser, but they have got a bit on their website saying iOS and Android is coming soon, so you just got to keep a
What
look
about
to that.
Playbook? Can people use it on the Playbook?
Funnily enough, if you have a mobile device that has Flash support, you can still use the website, and it will plug into your device's microphone and web camera. So there's nothing to stop you using a Playbook or an Android tablet with a Flash browser or anything like that, and still talk to your friends, or even, God forbid, a laptop or a desktop PC.
Oh my
So,
goodness,
oh
those ancient things,
yeah. So
mind
it's,
blown.
I mean, as an app itself, then it actually covers a lot of bases if you don't have if you don't want to use those popular apps for whatever reason. And a nice little touch, although some people might find it's maybe a bit seedy, is that it actually has chat rooms in it as well, so you can start video chatting with random.
Really?
Yes.
That is awesome.
So that can either be quite cool, or as I've found sometimes quite scary. So,
That is
but
wow.
this reminds me of the early days of internet messaging anyway, where people would go into chat rooms, and I used to use a couple of apps back in the day for voice chat, and the only way you could voice chat people was to go into these chat rooms and start randomly talking with folk. So it kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So maybe that's why I've got a little soft spot in my heart for that app.
It's
And
vintage.
it's a vintage style, yes, but with a modern twist. But also, while we were talking about messaging apps, I went onto the internet and found that one of my old apps that I used to use for internet messaging, ICQ, is still going.
Oh,
It's out
what?
there on Windows Phone, it's on iOS, it's on Android, it's on Bada and Symbian phones, it's on BlackBerry OS, not BlackBerry 10. And I was just mind blown.
We should try to port the Android app over, see how
Yes,
it
yes, see
works.
if it works. We should do a video hands-on of
Video
ICQ.
hands-on with first look ICQ on BlackBerry
I
10.
just, I just couldn't believe it because it. I had trouble remembering what the name of it was. I mean, that's how obscure it must have
That's the one
become.
with the
But they
little
see,
flower as the icon, right?
yeah, it's the flower for the
Oh
icon, and I've
man.
just installed it on my Windows 8 laptop as an app, but it's also an application, obviously, because that's its roots, and it's just shocking that it's still out there. So I think that the options are really out there. So tell me
Well, when you
about.
think about when you think about like the old school first IM clients, right? You had Windows Live Messenger, you had AOL Instant Messenger, Yahoo
Yeah,
Messenger, and
Yahoo Messenger
ICQ.
was the one of the first ones I think before Windows actually, because
Right.
the first time I went into chat rooms, it was Yahoo chat rooms. That was before the
Yahoo
Messenger was there.
Right. So now Windows Live Messenger is gone. Like it's officially nixed. You can't get that anymore. And now it's all integrated into Skype.
Yeah, there's
AIM is still rolling, right?
yeah. AOL Instant Messenger is still rolling apparently. I never used that one myself anyway, but the Yahoo's still going. Obviously, Windows Live Messenger, although it's only there's a couple of apps still floating around that are official for various devices, but then also you have third-party
Right.
applications that can still use the APIs for a little while longer, such as Pigeon and things like that. So
Yeah, IMO, if I'm not mistaken, also it's a really, really good app that's available on Android and iOS, which connects a bunch of different messaging clients. That one has access to Windows Live Messenger as well, which is pretty cool. Um, my app of the week for messaging is you're gonna think this is a little bit standard, but it's BBM. It just has to be BBM because BBM is the number one, in my opinion, messaging app in the world right now, and it's going cross-platform. So it's a perfect time to be able to talk about BBM right now. There's 60 million users, over 10 billion messages a day sent by these 60 million users, which is mind-boggling. Because if you look at the stats, how many? I'm not sure how many millions of people use iMessage, but it's got to be up there in like the hundreds of millions, I can imagine, right? They collectively only send about 2.5 billion messages a day, which when you compare that to the 10 billion that BBM 10 billion BBMs that are sent by only 60 million users, we're an active bunch, those of us that use BBM.
I think that's a definite thing. BBM is not just a messaging app in itself because there's a social engagement to it that iMessage doesn't have. Because you have your groups, and now the channels are coming in as well. There's a kind of mini social platform built into it, and I think that's why you get so much engagement on BBM as opposed to iMessage. iMessage is basically just a way to avoid SMS messages and be able to send pictures and
Right.
self-lives. So it's quite nice how it integrates into the iPhone and that you can send somebody a message and it won't send a text. Although that I found a bit annoying as well because, for instance, I'm running around and I've been stretching my data usage this month, so I keep turning off my data when I go out. And if I was on an iPhone, people would be trying to send me messages and it would never come through until I got home again. Whereas at least with having a separate BBM client to your text messaging, therefore you have more control over it from the handset.
Oh, that's true. I never actually thought about that. That's actually
I,
a really
I,
good point.
I'm a bit of a niche use case because I'm a pain in the backside power user. So
Right.
I find these instances where things don't quite. The simplification sometimes becomes more of a problem than what it attempts to solve, and that's one of those instances. But certainly with BBM, so like when you're on a BlackBerry 10 handset and you're on a phone call to somebody, you have the option on the screen to change the call to a BBM video chat. So that integration is there. It's just not automatic.
Yeah, no, it's true. And like for example, going back to a little bit more of the social aspect of a messaging app, you have things like display picture updates, status updates, music updates. Like for example, I just saw somebody right now that I just loaded on BBM on my queue is uh, is listening to blah blah blah, and they'll have like a song playing. So it definitely makes it a little bit more than just a hey, what's going on type of thing. You actually have if somebody hits on a topic via their status messages, display picture, or whatever that you are familiar with or you want to talk about, that automatically starts a conversation. That's something that you just don't have with a lot of messaging apps because one of the greatest things about BBM is you can't log out. You can't log out. It's always on. It's always available to you if your phone is on. If your phone is not on, obviously you can't get to it. And this is one of the reasons why one of the biggest rumors surrounding BBM going cross-platform is that it's only going to be available in smartphones. It won't be actually available on tablets, the iPad, or iPod touches. This has all been confirmed. You know, nobody at BlackBerry wants to say anything official, but it's BlackBerry has always had this policy of BBM has to be on a device that's always on, which could be one of the reasons why the playbook never got the BBM. But I digress. So BBM is a different breed.
There's 2 points that you've made that I want to touch upon there with BBM. Is number one is that the status messages, like I say, are a big thing. 'Cause that's a very Facebook/Twitter style
Yeah.
way of keeping people up to date, and that's been around a long time on BBM as well. And that gets you engaged with people sometimes, but also how that also integrates with other apps on BlackBerry smartphones is that you can send a tweet on your phone and then it will update your BBM status
Yep.
message, and then somebody will see your status message on BBM rather than Twitter and start a conversation with you. So this is how all these BBMs are coming about. In fact, that happened to me today. Somebody posted on Twitter, I saw their status message updating BBM and started the discussion that way rather than taking it onto the social network. So there is certainly that avenue to it. Now tell me, because this is a good point, because you talked about Skype becoming a verb, but also BBM is a verb.
It's a freaking word. You know,
It's an official word in the English dictionary.
it is an official word, but the best part about this is people will still debate me to this day whether or not it's a verb or whether it's a noun. It's both. BBM is both a noun and a verb.
Submission to the dictionary is both, because the point
Yeah.
was that it was used as a verb for 60 million users worldwide. You say, oh, you BBM me, and like you say, Skype me as well. And they're really the only two instant messaging clients I can think of that actually have transcended the name to the verb as
Yeah.
a using language. So it's going to be very interesting. And what I would like to see is how BlackBerry are going to try and stand up against the likes of, on the social side, you've got Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, and other social networks that people don't use, to on the side where you've got Skype and WhatsApp, and that BBM slotting right into the middle if it's going to go onto the handsets. And I'm intrigued. I still want to see BBM on the desktop.
Yeah, you know, and that's the interesting thing, because I feel like apps nowadays are, without getting too far into a different topic, but apps nowadays with the examples like Instagram, Path, Vine, a lot of these apps just won't be web. They'll be mobile exclusively. Instagram finally made its way onto the web by just allowing you to log in and look at pictures and leave comments and stuff, but you still can't upload a picture via the web. So Vine, you can barely just look at a Vine by via the web. So having BBM be on the desktop would be incredibly useful, and I think it would actually help out its just getting out there to more people. But I can kind of understand BlackBerry's wanting to keep it mobile and wanting to also just have it be something that's on your person at all times, and you will never have to worry about whether this BBM is going to somebody's desktop or whether it's going to be on somebody's versus somebody's smartphone. So
that's an interesting thing that they've got to stand up against, because with Skype you can be logged in on multiple devices and each device will get the message. With BBM you're only on one device at a time.
that'll be the interesting thing to see, right? Because when we get BBM on Android and iOS, and I'll have to load up BBM on my iPhone, it'll be interesting to see if when I log in, it's expected, right, that if I log in with my BBID here, it'll take my BBM information out of my BlackBerry and it'll put it on the iPhone exclusively. And so I'll only be able to have it on one device, regardless of what platform it's on.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what it's going to be like, which is see, this is where Skype has the advantage as a messaging platform, because it's on mobile, it's on the desktop, it's got that verb thing, it's well ingrained, even got hardware out there. You can buy phones to plug into your network and use them to call people around the world. So they've really got themselves in a nice place at the moment, and they'll keep pushing hard to keep the subscriptions going and things like that. So it's not quite the same model as that. And like I say, as this all goes cross-platform, it'll be interesting to see how the big messaging clients start to differentiate themselves from the others.
Do people use Skype? And I'm asking this in general, just to and you guys can leave us comments actually if you guys use Skype for something other than video calls, because I automatically, whenever somebody says Skype me, or whenever I think of Skype, I think video, or I think voice at times. I never think text. And you have a chat feature on Skype, which a lot of people I'm sure use, but that's not what the norm is. Like, people don't think of Skype as a text or chat client. They think of it as a video client that can do chat, more kind of like BBM is considered as a chat client which can do video.
I think that's quite right there, and there's certainly that aspect where the app is designed voice first,
Right.
and then video alongside it beyond the actual messaging. It's the text messaging is almost secondary to it. It doesn't feel natural within the app. It's there. It's not too far away, but even so, I get what you mean there, and it's certainly a way of thinking where people know if you're going to use Skype, you're going to be having a conversation in real time.
Yeah.
If you're going to use WhatsApp, you're not,
Right.
and
Right.
or AOL Instant Messenger or Yahoo or whichever ones of those, you're going to be doing text back and forth. So it's an interesting point, and I've got to admit, since BlackBerry 10's been out, I have been using BBM video a fair amount. But
Right.
even so, I completely agree. Whenever I want to send somebody a message, if they've got a BlackBerry, I'll BBM them, and if then I start looking at avenues. But I never usually go, oh, I'll get them on Skype because people turn it off when they're
Yeah.
not using it.
Yeah.
So you can't
Yeah.
rely on people to be there to receive your message. And the other thing I've discovered about Skype is both clients have to be turned on if they're going to have the message sent through.
Yes.
Uh, so if I send, let's say I'm on Skype and I want to send you a message, I can send that message and it's sat there in limbo until you turn on. But if I turn off Skype, you'll never get that message until we're both connected at another time. So
Right.
that's a real problem with text messaging on Skype that I've come across because I've got to send them. I've been caught out. So I'm like, oh, I'll send a message. Oh, they'll get it the next time they turn it. It'll be within the next day or so. And then, of course, they never get it because they have to wait for me to log in at the same time. So that's probably another reason why Skype is. Certainly, I don't go to Skype to send people messages naturally.
Well,
I
that's that,
ring
that that's
somebody
a
else.
huge point. I had never realized that actually. So that's a huge point you made there. Moving on a little bit more before we run out of time, because I don't want to have this drag on too long. Lifestyle apps. So we're not just talking about messaging. We're talking about lifestyle things, that apps that help our lives, as the name
Absolutely.
suggests.
But it's a big day today in other aspects because Google Play have finally have listed more apps than the App Store. So
Which is
that
insane.
that is big news for Google today, and they are probably quite pleased with themselves right
Well, how
now.
many did they hit?
Oh, it was a big number. I,
Oh
I,
man,
I
it
got
should
bored after
be
reading so
right
many
now.
zeros. So, but the point is that on our on our mobiles and phones, whatever, we only have a certain amount of apps that we really use. Let's say 20 or 30 for the average person. And a number of those are going to be big name apps. It doesn't really matter how many apps are there. For instance, we're going to talk about Starbucks lifestyle. So let's talk about Starbucks. They
Mhm.
have a loyalty card app on iOS and Android, which is all fine. Now, Windows Phone and BlackBerry 10 don't have the app, and so I looked on the Windows Phone store and I discovered there are about 10 Starbucks loyalty card apps that developers have made because Starbucks are not supporting the platform. So at what point do you, at what point Apple started this off by saying we've got X amount of apps in our app store? It was Apple's marketing, Apple's gimmick, saying there's an app for that and all this thing. They made it a contest on numbers, and now they've been overtaken.
Yeah,
So now,
I
so
just
now they're
looked up the
trying.
numbers. Google Play hit officially 1 million apps. That's
Mm,
the big mark. Back in June, Apple announced that they had hit 900,000 apps in the App Store. So that's about 100,000 app difference. Google Play is actually up 500,000 apps since last year at this point in time. So they've doubled the amount of available apps in Google Play in a
that
year.
that is insane. And
It is
so the point
absolutely ridiculous.
that we know, people who are familiar with app ecosystem know that there are apps that never get downloaded, zombie apps. There
Yeah.
are apps that don't get maintained after a certain amount of times; they just fall out of favor and things like that. So, how important are the numbers? But I think the point of lifestyle is that you have apps that people want to use in their day-to-day lives to make them easier. And so this is one of the things that I discovered with the loyalty card issue. If you read my review of the BlackBerry Q5 over at BlackBerryOS.com, I actually cited an example where BlackBerry 10 apps are falling foul of this because I was in a retail store called Game. I was buying a game, oddly enough, and the guy, I didn't have a loyalty card with me, and the guy said, "Oh, just download the app on your iPhone." My wife said, "I don't have an iPhone." I said, "Oh, right, well, I've got an Android app as well." No, no, I don't have an Android. And you get iPad.
Wow.
It just yeah, I could
He
feel his
just went through
brain
the
oozing out of
checklist.
his ears as he struggled to comprehend that somebody didn't have an iPhone or an Android phone, and so I I, it was a bit of an embarrassing situation because you go, all right, there are all these apps out there that can do these things, but the problem is that if last week we're talking about big apps, the big names, this time we're talking about the smaller ones, but that are there in everyday lives. You see an advert for a shopping center or a mall or whatever hypermarket on the TV, and then they'll say, "Oh, download our app to do your shopping,"
Yeah,
and it'll say iOS and Google Play every time almost.
yeah,
And does it put those ecosystems at a disadvantage? So with that in mind, we were poking around for apps, my wife and I, and she actually found this. It's really good. It's called I better load up. FidMe, FIDME, and this is available on Android, iOS, Windows Phone, and BlackBerry 10. And what it does is it lets you put in your store cards that you have into a single app, this app, and it will let you have a virtual wallet of store cards so that you can just pick the one out that you want when you go to the shop, use it to scan like you would with the real app if you chose to use this one instead. It has some. It uses a thing called FidMe points as well, which is some sort of contest or benefits thing. But also it shows you maps of the stores as well, so you can still find the stores much like in the native apps you'd do. The only thing it doesn't do is show you points balances and things like that if you happen to have that. But it's a really cool app, and it even if they don't list the store card that you want to use, you can add your own one anyway, and you can scan the barcode on the cards, or you can just type in the number. It's really impressive, and it fits that spot where you go, okay, well, we don't have all these apps, or even if we do, maybe we don't want to download every single one and just keep receiving
right.
notifications saying, hey, we've got a brand new offer. So for iOS and Android users, it fits that bill. We're going, right, I can have this one app on my icon screen rather than having to have pages and pages of these loyalty cards app. For Windows Phone users, for BlackBerry users, it fills the gap where you go, we don't even have an app for that. So this will fix that problem. I can now scan this barcode at the store when I go in there, and it's a nice touch. It's a good app, and certainly if you do find yourself carting around a lot of loyalty cards in your wallet anyway, you might consider giving it a go just to lighten it up a bit.
Now, talking about a little bit more about that, one of the things that you mentioned specifically is how sometimes apps will, you'll see an ad on TV, or you'll see something when you're walking. It's like, download our app. The funniest part is, well, it's not really funny, but it's kind of sad that sometimes these apps will be available on BlackBerry 10, but they won't be listed underneath the advert. I'll give you an example. One of the apps that I have, and I'm just opening it up right now, is called ZBox. ZBox is an app that interacts with your TV directly. I don't know if you guys have it over there.
Yeah, I love that app.
It's cool, right? So it's available on BlackBerry 10. I'm not sure if it's available on Windows, but it's available on iOS and Android. The interesting thing about it is the fact that when you see the ad, at least on TV here, is they'll say, download it for your iOS or Android device, and it won't say anything about BlackBerry World. So but it's there. It's in BlackBerry World. So automatically, when I saw that ad, you automatically think, well, it's another app that we don't have. A couple of days later, I had a friend of mine tell me that they downloaded it and they were able to, they really liked using it. And come to find out, I should have been looking for it. So it's come to the point now that even if the app isn't necessarily, the App Store isn't mentioned, BlackBerry World isn't mentioned on the commercial, or it's not talked about, or even if people may not know that the app is available for BlackBerry 10, it's still worth giving it a shot and looking for it. That's why to this day, anytime I find another app, on whether it's on Google Play or the App Store, I'll make sure to at least look for it in BlackBerry 10, because you never know. People may just not know that it is available on BlackBerry 10,
Yeah.
even though it actually is.
Yeah, and actually, I've just looked at the ZBox website, and they do list BlackBerry as one of the mobiles that they have there,
Oh, good.
but it's got a picture of a curve, even though it's on BlackBerry 10s.
It's not available on.
you,
And the funny
you
thing is,
can't
it's
make
not
it up.
available on BBOS.
No.
So that doesn't even make sense.
Oh,
So, but that's
moving on,
another
moving on.
that's another that's another topic for another day. My lifestyle app for this week, believe it or not, it wasn't Zbox. It's actually an app called Trulia. If you guys have Android or iOS, you'll be able to actually download this app. It's only available for the two major OSs. Um, what this app does is there's two apps. There's one for rent and there's one for mortgages. My wife and I are actually looking to move, so when you open the app, you'll be greeted with your GPS location. Let me see if you can actually see that, and it'll give you a good map, and it'll give you a nice little location using Google Maps of where all the different rent types are around you and how much they are, contact information, and within that contact information, you can actually send either the landlord or the person that's looking to sell the house an email directly from the app asking for more information. It's actually been quite handy. It works really, really nicely. Trulia has actually helped us out a lot. Both my wife uses it on her Nexus 7, and I have it on my Android device. It's extremely useful, and this is again where when it comes to lifestyle apps, sometimes an app is designed for a specific period of time in your life in which you need it. Like so many people have, there are a lot of baby apps out there. There are a lot of wedding apps in which you can use them for that specific point in time, and you'll probably never use them again after that period of time. But they're still extremely useful. So we have a couple of different categories when it comes to these lifestyle apps as well. John, when we're talking about banks, though, do you feel like a bank app is something that's essential, it's necessary, it's part of this lifestyle app, or are you more kind of like do you not trust these bank apps instead?
I think bank apps are becoming quite important actually. Yeah, it's because you go around through your day. There's always I think people are getting quite accustomed to money going in, bills going out quite constantly, and you always need to know at a glance how your cash flow is doing. And you don't always have access to an ATM or whatever, but even then you're limited on the information it gives you. I think
Right.
banking apps have become quite important for people. Now, over here in the UK, we've there are a few banks that do have banking apps, and for instance, the bank I bank with, NatWest, has a BlackBerry app, iOS. Not sure if they have an Android one. I don't think they. I think they do actually. They don't have a Windows Phone one, and they don't have a BlackBerry 10 one. So, but that's not a huge problem for me because I think on modern smartphones now the web browsers are pretty competent, and uh, the only annoyance there is that you have to go through the hassle of signing into your account through a
Yeah.
web form rather
Yeah.
than just punching in a little PIN number. For instance, my wife's bank, uh, she has her own bank account as well, is with a different one. They have no apps,
Yeah.
no apps
No
whatsoever.
platform?
Nope, nope, they don't
Oh,
have any
snap.
apps at all. You go through their website and they say, no, we don't
Wow.
do any apps. And if you think you're downloading an app, then you're not downloading it from us, and it's not sanctioned. So be careful what you put in. And I think from their standpoint, they think it's probably much more secure and safer to have that point where you say, no, it's online banking is just going to happen through the website. You have a security certificate there, the user can see what's going on. So there's two sides to that. You can still do mobile banking without an app, although there is a convenience to it, and I do miss that with my bank having no app at the moment, having to sign into the website.
Interesting. Yeah, so far right now, BlackBerry 10 is the one that's really, really behind in terms of these apps. The UK, I don't think has. I don't know if you guys have any BlackBerry 10 apps available to you. I know in Canada there's a couple. There's even a couple that use NFC with their cards and stuff like that, and use NFC on the Bold 9900, and eventually I think that transferred over to the Z10. But in the US, we have zero banking apps for BlackBerry 10, so that's also a really, really big need in terms of just lifestyle, because as you said, even though the browser is extremely capable, and that's what most of us have to end up using anyways if we want to check our balance or whatever on the go, it's nice having the convenience of having an app at your fingertips whenever you need it.
Yeah, definitely. I did miss that when I moved over to BlackBerry 10, having my banking app handy, and I was using it on my old BlackBerry phone for a time being. But certainly, there's a huge convenience, and this comes back to the whole lifestyle thing where we say that yeah, these apps are there to make your life a little bit easier and convenient. It's all about convenience, these lifestyle apps, and whether it's been shop, bank, or
Coffee.
coffee. Yeah, exactly. Most of these are retail based and just they're there to sell you wares basically. They want you to go and buy coffee from there. So if they're showing you a map of where the nearest coffee shop is, then you're more likely to go to that than the independent one that's around the corner that has no app because it's an
You know what?
independent coffee shop.
You know what I've found to actually be a little bit more um, like a lifestyle app, even though it's really not a lifestyle app, is Google Now. Google Now has blown my mind in the last couple of days. I hadn't really messed around with it on my HTC First, but it if I'm let's say I was at the mall and I turn on Google Now without even asking for it, it automatically tells me how far I am from home. How does it know where I'm home? I have no idea. Like, how does it know where home is? It doesn't. I haven't told it. When I opened the menu to see where it just used my GPS location the most amount where I've spent the most amount of time, and it assumed that was home. It assumed that was home, and it assumed correctly. It's really really creepy, but it's very very nicely laid out. Gave me directions, gives me the weather, gives me my sports scores, and then if I had any stocks, which I don't, it has it in the bottom. So it's not really a lifestyle app. It's more of an integrated. It's more just integrated into the actual operating system, but it was definitely extremely convenient, and I can see the appeal of it now. Whereas something more like Siri, which is what Apple has, is not really meant for that stuff. Like, you can ask Siri, what chocolate is made out of, and it'll probably give you an answer, but it's not as conducive to giving you information without you really requesting it by just knowing what you could need at that or what you could be looking for at that time.
Yeah, that sounds pretty
So
cool.
it was, and hopefully one day we'll get Google Now on BlackBerry 10. That'd be kind of nice. Um, John, what else are we going to talk about in terms of lifestyle apps? Let's see. I have one more that I wanted to share with you guys real quick because I don't do a lot of running, but if I did, and I know a lot of people really, really use this app, it's Edomondo. I think that's how you pronounce it, right, John? Edomondo Pro. It's an app
that
that
sounds
keeps
about right.
track. It's an app that keeps track of when you're running and the pace that you're going for and the distance that you're going for. I've seen a lot of people using this app. It's extremely popular. If you guys haven't gotten it already, I highly suggest it. And I think that actually pretty much includes my lifestyle apps. I don't have any more lifestyle apps.
Yay! Well, okay. Well, I think we're up to our time anyway. I'm hoping that somebody will take something away and, like I say, put in the comments on the website. Tell us about the apps you're using. Tell us about the ones we've talked about. If you know any better ones, then that's great too. And we'll keep themes going on and covering more apps every week.
Yes, sir. We will see you guys next Wednesday at the same time, 5:30. 5:30. That's my British accent for the week.
Just so I can say, because we were asked last week, what is apps 30? And do you have Pims over there?
Pims?
Yeah, obviously
I
not.
don't know what Pims are.
But basically, it's a alcoholic drink over here called Pims, and there's an ad campaign where basically you're going, oh look, there's a bunch of people hanging around. It must be Pims o'clock, and then they get the Pims out. So this is to apps what Pims is to drinking.
But instead of it being apps o'clock,
it's apps 30.
It's apps 30. That's why it's on at 5:30. So if you guys are wondering, now John Reed has cleverly explained that. Yeah, and it's actually it's inspired. The name, I cannot take credit for this completely. One of my favorite podcasts or webcasts, I guess, on YouTube is this Tech Syndicate, which you guys should definitely check out. They have a small segment, I think it's every month, where they just rant, and they call that Rant 30. And I remember just hearing that, the Rant 30, and just being like, that is brilliant, and it has stuck with me for such a long time. I mean, these guys have been doing this for a while, that when we were thinking of a name for the webcast, it's like Apps 30. Like that sounds like a good like name for it. So hopefully it's not too lame or whatever. But we
Well,
liked it. So
well, as I say, if you're listening, if you're watching, remember, it's always Apps 30.
it's always Apps 30. That's it. Unless it's beer o'clock, in which we'll give you guys a little leeway on that. See you guys next Wednesday at 5:30 here on Apps 30. John, where can the good people find you on the social networks?
Okay, well, that's it. You can find me, John S. Reed, on Twitter. Also, you can fire up the main site, All Your Gadgets, on Twitter as well. You can find JT on Apps 30.
Yeah, aside from finding me on App Store, you can find me on Twitter at JT_Turan. And you can also find both of us either on allyourgadgets.com or on our other site, BlackberryOS.com, where we do a lot of BlackBerry goodness. Make sure you stay tuned to next week. We will be talking more apps. So if you guys have any suggestions, any ideas that you guys want specifically covered, just put them in the comments. Send us an email or a tweet, and we'll be sure to cover them. Until next week, everybody.
Take care.